Hudson River? You know, where are we talking about? The whole probability from the reason for doing it to the mode of execution, to the analysis of the data, to the reason for the collapse of the building seems to me to nullify the conspiracy theory. I don't believe in it. I think the evidence is against it. I think some of the people who are pushing it are indeed nutty. Other people are well-meaning but are misled by evidence. Other people at some point cannot listen to any other point of view. We've published all these endless scientific inspections, and when I offer them to people, or when Manuel Garcia does or Jeffrey does, I don't think they ever read it. They are already convinced. There is a strain in America that needs a plot, needs like three grand masons, or that needs, and the other thing is rather racist. They say, you know, Arabs couldn't have done it. You know, they say, you know, can this have been done by Arabs living in caves? Well, that's saying that the only people who could do it are we might have done it to ourselves, but no one else is capable of doing it. That seems to me rather a racist position. I said my bit.
You mentioned earlier about the letters that come into you. Why in 1995 did you compile a lot of letters into this book?
Well, it's not just letters. That's actually my favorite book, The Golden Age.
This is Golden Age?
Yeah, I think it's really a journal about, you know, from 1987 to 1994, which was, well, of course it was the downfall of the Soviet Union. Is significant, many significant moments in world history, economic and political history. It starts with the death.
Your journal, right?
It's a journal. Mm-hmm. It's a journal in which letters occur, and I put the letters in because a lot of my, as I guess people can see, a lot of my life is a political life and intellectual life is fairly contentious, and I don't mind contentiousness. It doesn't bother me. People say I got these terrible letters. I mean, a letter over the internet does not hurt you. I mean, something, you know, things can hurt one physically, but if you're robust, I hand it out to people. I've got to be prepared to be on the receiving end, you know, of polemic. I don't mind polemic at all. This book, there's not a lot of that in it. I tried to show really the life of someone of my outlook, intellectually and also geographically and to some extent emotionally, in that book.
Why did you include in it a letter from someone saying they were glad your mother was dead?
They were glad. It was actually someone who didn't like my criticisms of the State of Israel. And I put it in to show these people, it's like the guy who rings up about the Holocaust. They will scorn no weapon. I mean, I looked at it and I just thought, this guy, I would like to show someone who read a column of mine, maybe noted that I'd said my mother was dead, and felt impelled to get a piece of paper, write on it, and actually signed it. I think he'd give his name. But it was a one-line thing, signed his name at the end of it, and went down to stuck it in an envelope, put it off, and presumably felt, well, I've shown that guy what I think. I'm glad. I wish you were dead, which is a reaction, but I'm glad your mother is dead. In other words, it was an expression of, I thought, you know, venom, which is just truly pathetic.
Madison, Wisconsin, hello.
Hello. This is the first time I've ever heard of you, and you're an amazing intellect.
What a fine fellow you are.
Although I consider myself from the opposite end of the political scale, I find myself agreeing with nearly everything you've said, except maybe on this, which you alluded to slightly, referring to Al Gore's movie. What's your opinion on the use of nuclear power?
Oh, I think the practical histories of, well, thank you for your nice words, and I'm glad that I can reach beyond the, so to speak, people who might already know my writings, although we have many friends in Wisconsin. I don't know where you are in Wisconsin, but I'm glad that you find that things I say are of interest and might even agree with some of them. On nuclear power, I just think, you know, the way that nuclear power, the grid organization, the safety issues, the social energy organization that is required to produce nuclear power establishes a series of penalties and situations which I think we shouldn't have. You know, I mean, just look at nuclear the generation of nuclear power and power as it's occurred in the Pacific Northwest, or, you know, power plants or whatever it is. Well, that's the reservation connected with the manufacture of uranium and so forth. It's, look at Chernobyl, look at all these sites, that it's not worth the candle. There are other ways you should go. That's my basic position on nuclear power.
A couple other issues then. Why don't you just jump in on illegal immigration?
Well, you can argue that, I mean, my feeling on illegal immigration is, you know, that it is fundamentally wrong for a country such as the United States to have a lot of its economy posited on labor, demanding labor, which they then cause to be illegal. California agriculture would collapse without illegal immigrant labor. Illegal in the words of the state. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, as they found in Northern California last year, when enforcement in Lake County, for example, up Northern California, you know, a lot of laborers wouldn't go up there because they feared arrest and deportation. And so the crops all lay on the ground. And so why have a situation where you say our economy depends, not just agriculture, but, you know, construction, in whole areas. You know, we were talking about southern Kansas before the show began. You know, you can drive through southern Kansas now and you can listen to, you know, Spanish radio, because that wasn't true 20 years ago. The economy requires labor. So now you have people who have to come. Meanwhile, you then espouse economic policies south of the border, like, you know, with neoliberal reform, in quotes, that destroy, let's say, Mexican agriculture, because now you drench the country under so-called free trade, free to dump, you know, Canadian and American corn in Mexico and wipe out the small peasant who can't exist. Or earlier on, you deny land reform in Honduras, in Guatemala, you know, when they tried to do it in the 50s. So gradually, you make it impossible in these southern countries for a peasantry to survive and make a go of it. You know, you suppress land reform, you support the landlords, you support the powers that be, you support the army, you wipe out all that, and what do you get? You get a tidal wave of people from down as far as Colombia who come up north, because it's the only way they can go. You've destroyed, and you and the clients whom you're sponsoring and helping down there, you've destroyed their conditions of life. They come north, they go to the cities, and then they go north to work. Meanwhile, you've established an economy here that requires the labor. So now you then rear up and you make your fence across the border higher and higher and higher, so the people who might have seasonally come across the border and gone back, now if they get across, they're sure as hell not going to try not to get back, because they can't get back. So you've created the conditions which require it, and then you penalize it. So how can anyone then stand there and say, I call these people illegal, as opposed to people who are rendered illegal by a system that wants their cake and wants to eat it? That's what it comes down to.
One more issue, gay marriage.
Well, I don't know. I've come out against it. You know, partly my good friend Bill Dobbs pointed me in this direction, because why would an institution which is basically taking church principles, you know, and applying them to a state license for people to get married, be regarded as progressive? I mean, why suddenly, after years of talking about the oppressions of marriage, should you... I mean, if gay people want to get married, that's their good thing, but to regard it as kind of a radical demand, it doesn't seem to me very radical at all. You're saying, I would like the credentials of a state which in many ways I regard as oppressive and intrusive on, you know, human freedoms. And you want to ally the licensing capacity of the state with the licensing capacity of a religion, and then that's marriage, right? And then you call that, let's have by all means, let's have a civil ceremony, but let's get the church out of it. So to call this radical progress doesn't seem to me the case at all. And I think many actually gay people rather agree with that position.
Madison, Maine, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm a long-time admirer. I'd like to hear your comments on the following. If not one boy, bullet, or bomb had been sent to Vietnam, considering the geopolitical milieu with China and Russia at the time, what do you think would have been the result in that area? And second, any comments further you have about Tom Friedman, I'd like to hear. And third, your home in California looks great. Great place to live.
Well, it's true of the latter question, petroleum. It's a what-if question about Vietnam. You mean if the famous election that elected Ho Chi Minh, let's say in what, 1954, if the US hadn't already been intervening to try and save French colonialism after Dien Bien Phu, if the Eisenhower administration had said, okay, let Vietnam be united under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh, well, it's a what-if question, and what-if questions are by definition what-if, and sometimes they're fruitless to explore. But certainly the premises for saying if we let that happen, the domino theory will lead to a fantastic triumph for communism. All of these theories all turned out to be completely wrong. So, of course, I would say I wish that had happened, because, how many people died in the Vietnam War? I mean, aside from U.S. casualties, what is it? I mean, the normal rating is 2 million. McNamara in his interviews, a couple of years ago now, said 3 million. Staggering